Welcome back to the Agriland Pavilion here at the National Ploughing Championships in Ratheniska in County Laois. I'm joined on our live stage now by Minister of State at the Department of Agriculture with responsibility for farm safety and new market development, Martin Heydon. Martin, thanks very much for joining us.
Thanks, Ella. Great to be here.
First of all, Minister, I will ask you about your portfolio in farm safety. As we all know, we will be focusing on farm safety as part of the Agriland live stream here at the Ploughing Championships. And indeed, we have entered into a partnership with your own department, Department of Agriculture, to really raise awareness around this issue. The National Farm Survey from Teagasc this year indicated that, I suppose the latest data available is 2020, but indicated that over 4,000 accidents took place in farms in 2020. What's your aim to reduce that number? How are you going to reduce it?
Yeah, well, look, I want to acknowledge, first of all, Agriland's role in partnering with my department and in the great coverage you've given to this topic that we have to talk about every single day. And the mood is so good here at the Ploughing Championships. I feel bad bringing it up, but we have to, and this is a perfect opportunity to bring home that point and to tell farmers that statistically they are 7 times more likely to die working on their farm than any other worker in Ireland in any other workplace. That's a really stark reality, and you're dead right. When you talk about the thousands of incidents, many of them can be life-changing in terms of injuries that have a very different impact, but we tend to focus on the fatality figures, understandably, but there are so many incidents that change people's lives forever, and that all comes down to risk. It comes down to farmers identifying risk and managing it, and if they don't manage it, and if they identify a hazard on the farm, like a broken manhole cover, a cracked PTO shaft, a light that's not working, and if they put off fixing that, that keeps that risk level high. And what we need all farmers to do is, leaving the Ploughing Championships this week, is to resolve to go home and change that thing that is dangerous, and to make those 1 or 2 changes that makes their farms a little bit safer, will reduce that risk level. And if we reduce the amount of near misses, we'll reduce the amount of incidents that happen, we'll reduce the amount of fatalities and serious injuries as well.
Well, how practically can you change mentalities then? Is it the likes of putting investment into such things as simulators?
So there's no one simple solution here. If there was, it would have been fixed long before I was in this role as a Minister in the Department of Agriculture. So it's a multifaceted approach, and it's working with all partners, whether it's agri-media, farming organisations, so many good community groups around the country. And I've initiated a lot of farm safety initiatives in my 2.5 years in the role. I've set up innovation partnership models, which are 8 locally led projects around the country that we're funding through the department to develop new ideas around farm safety, farmer mental health and well-being, because they're inextricably linked. Issues like succession and other issues in that area as well. This week I'm delighted to partner with Teagasc, and I've used €1.2 million of my budget this year to buy 18 simulators. And there's one in the Teagasc stand this week where people can have a go on it. But ultimately what it is every student or farmer who comes through Teagasc to do a course, so if it's a student under Green Cert or a farmer of any age doing a course, they'll have an opportunity to use these simulators. If they're thinking of buying a new teleporter, teleporters are very dangerous in terms of poor sight lines around them. Combine, tractors pulling heavy machinery. We see younger drivers now working for contractors. It's regularly raised by road users as well as by farmers about concerns of how much training have they had before they go out on that road. This is an opportunity for them to experience that, the road setting in a safe environment of the simulator, with the experience of having very heavy loads behind them in wet conditions, dry conditions. It really is a fantastic piece of equipment, and we've 18 of them around the country now. That will be a big addition this year. But that's one small part of our report.
Another part of it in terms of farm safety clearly is keeping a farmer safe when he's using machinery. But if I have seen anything over the past couple of days here at the Ploughing, it's the machinery stands and the crowds of young children who you can see it's like Christmas. Their eyes light up when they see some of the absolute phenomenal machines that are on site here. They're so interested in the machines, they want to jump up in them. Obviously they're all stationary, they're parked up here, but you can imagine, you've kids yourself, Minister, and you know that children are interested in being around things that move, that are big, that are active. So there's a responsibility there, I suppose, to ensure that children understand the seriousness as well as mum and dad.
That's it, exactly. And when we talk about changing the culture, that has to be the change. So, 30 years ago when I was a young lad on my farm at home, I'd plead with my uncle to get up on top of the load of bales coming home. Thankfully now, if somebody saw a farmer doing that nowadays, they'd be probably arrested because it would be socially unacceptable. It has to be socially unacceptable for children to be around the yard when vehicles are working. Machinery accounts for half of all fatalities over the last 10 years on Irish farms. We have lost a number of children in the last 10 years also. When you deal with families who have suffered that bereavement, it is absolutely horrific. They would give their time back again in any way to undo that was done. So we all want our children to be raised, as me and my wife do at home in Kildare, on an active farm. We want them to learn the experience of farming, but we can do that in a safe and measured way, and we have to again be aware of the risks and the hazards and not have children up on machinery when it's working, when it's active. It needs to be stationary. They can get that experience then, but they shouldn't be in areas of working machinery or livestock in very close proximity to them when there's hazards are there.
And we will be continuing that theme of farm safety tomorrow on Agriland, and of course even on the Agriland site we've plenty of videos there with advice. They're very short, they're easy to understand, and people can get it. That will make them think, you know, just maybe one step before they do something, and it could prevent an accident, or as you said, a near miss. I might change to another part of your portfolio then, and that's in terms of new market development. So I suppose a lot of farmers are wondering what's happening with new markets, finding new markets so that they can get better, for example, beef prices. You have been working over the last couple of years in establishing new markets, but there are still markets where we're trying to get back into, or, you know, the likes of beef in China. Again, we've heard numerous times it's out of our control, and we're trying to get cheap meat into the US, which is great, but again, it has to go through USDA approval. How close are we? Are we any closer maybe than the last time I spoke to you, where it was still in the hands of, for example, the Chinese authorities in that instance?
Well, specifically in relation to beef in China, it's something we're very determined to try and get access back in there. We've left no stone unturned in relation to our engagement, both from my officials in the Department of Agriculture and at political level. Myself, Minister McConalogue, Minister Simon Coveney has dealt with his counterpart in Foreign Affairs, and even from Taoiseach level to Premier in China, this has been raised at the highest level. We continue to wait to see if there are any more requests from the Chinese, but we are very keen to get that access, but again, that's not within our gift. I suppose if I learned anything from my recent trade mission to Vietnam, where we are progressing through the process of gaining beef access to Vietnam, a population of 100 million people, you can't beat an in-person meeting. And unfortunately, due to COVID, we're not in a space to be able to visit China just yet. But we made very good progress on the recent visit to Vietnam, where the officials have agreed to a reciprocal audit that needs to happen, and they're going to visit here before the end of the year. But we also have good trade opportunities there that we're growing on with the access that we have for our dairy produce, for pork in that area. So a lot of our markets we have, when you go out to talk about one specific product, there's a lot of other products that might be there already. Interestingly, fish is quite a significant export for us to Vietnam, which you wouldn't have expected. But you know, sheep meat in USA, obviously our recent trade mission to America earlier this year did make progress in that regard. And maybe what I found from my visit to Mexico in relation to promotion of pig meat is actually getting market access is a very long, slow process. And when you get it, then that's the start of another process where you have to work with your Irish companies to, in conjunction with Bord Bia and with our excellent agricultural attaches from the department that are in our embassy and diplomatic network, to make sure that we build those connections to get the distributors that are needed to get the product out and about and to get face to face with the local customers.
And finally, Minister, because I know we're tight for time today, but I just wanted to ask you in relation to, I suppose, climate, environment and emissions. We had independent TD Michael Healy-Rae on our live stage yesterday, and he really made some strong claims and accusations against the parties Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil for what he said were facilitating policies by the Green Party which were really detrimental to farm families' incomes and farm family way of life around the country. Your party colleague MEP Colin Markey was here at the time. He's a farmer himself, no more than you are. And what Michael Healy-Rae was basically saying was that you can't speak out of both sides of your mouth. Fine Gael cannot say it's for farmers and implement what he said were just, I suppose, something like draconian measures in terms of environment.
Well, I couldn't disagree more with what Michael Healy-Rae says, and I think it's very disingenuous of him actually to make those points, because I would argue exactly what we are doing in government. And Fine Gael are very proud to have been in successive governments where we have moved the dial in terms of our climate ambition, but at the same time protected the interests and seen an increase of income from agriculture into our rural areas. And they're inextricably linked. We're not bringing in these climate measures just to try and keep a coalition partner happy here. We're bringing in these environmental measures because it's the right thing to do for our country, but it's also, in terms of the trade aspect and the trade missions I've been on that I've just referenced, it is the right place to position Irish agriculture and farmers for into the future. Our 10-year food strategy, Food Vision 2030, talks about us increasing the value of our Irish food and drink exports to the benefit of all our primary producers and farmers all over Ireland, from present value of €14 billion to €21 billion. We've been very successful at getting it from €8 billion to €14 billion, and we see the benefits of that in rural Ireland, in our rural economy. But by getting it from 14 to 21 billion, we're going to do that not by growing quantity, but by growing the value. And whether that's taking our primarily milk and milk powder products and turn that into cheese, which has a higher value, that benefits the farmer more. And you see the recent development like Glombia's new continental cheese plant, which also is a Brexit diversification measure, and partnering with the likes of Royal Awer. But this is where we position Irish farmers into the future, because the high value markets that we're going into, those customers who are presently buying Irish food and drink and who want to do so into the future, have a higher level of climate ambition. They need a story for their customers about the reducing emissions profile. So if Irish farmers were to be able to be told by government, look, you're okay, stay where you are, don't do anything, we would be doing them a disservice, and they would find themselves being locked out of markets when food companies that buy an awful lot of our food and drink products from Ireland have to meet their Scope 3 requirements and all the other challenges that are coming down the line for them. I would argue that we are actually positioning agriculture to be in a very resilient, very strong position into the future, where farmers' primary role will continue to be to produce top quality food.
But they will have to be supported to do that. I suppose it was more that he was saying that it was a stick more than a carrot, and that more carrot is needed for the farmers because they can't afford to implement these new measures.
Of course, government stands ready to support farmers, and we've done that already. So if you look at where we need to have interventions and make investment in areas like strong corporation measures, which is now proven, and tillage farmers who were sceptical at the start are now saying to me they see the benefits of that in terms of the improved nutrient density in their ground. And government has stood in and they've supported farmers in those places. We have supported farmers through our fodder scheme earlier this year, through the pig sector, through the horticulture sector, when farms and sectors have got under pressure. Government hasn't been shy of that. But I would also make the point that change is a challenge, and we have to bring farmers with us, and the Teagasc Signpost Farm programme is a really important way of disseminating the new information and knowledge we have down to farmers. But what farmers are discovering is that a lot of those changes are actually better for their bottom line. Moving away from our dependency on artificial fertiliser, which we now see is so expensive, to be able to move to the likes of multi-species swords, to be able to move to new technologies that actually reduce their input costs, can improve their margin. Obviously, as farmers, we always look at our end price, and that's what our focus is, but we now have become so acutely aware of what the input costs are, and I would argue that a lot of the measures that farmers are being asked to look at now actually can improve their bottom line down the line.
Minister Martin Heydon, thank you very much for joining us on the Agriland live stream, live from the Agriland Pavilion here at the Ploughing Championships in Ratheniska. And we'll head out now again to the ploughing site, to our Agriland team, who are bringing you a series of interviews from all the exhibitors here today.